Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about leadership. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, should a great software developer also be a team lead slash manager if leadership skills are there? If leadership skills are there, and why would you not want to go down that route? How does this play together optimally with agile teams? Uh, I don't really understand what you're asking in a sense here, but I'm guessing what you're asking for is, do you need team leadership skills, or like if you want to be a great software developer, do you need to be able to lead? And why is that? Why is that not that necessary? And how does that fit into the teams that you work in? Or like, you're mentioning agile now here, but it's sort of, what does it matter if it's an agile team or just a regular team? Just yeah. Anywho, the short answer is that you are going to have one of two things in order to become successful as a software developer. Either you will have to be able to lead people, or you will have to be able to learn a complicated domain and be an expert of some sort, usually. These are the two main paths if you're like not going to start a company or something like that. Because the reality is, guys, that as you grow more experienced, the company, if you want to increase, your walk up the ladder, so to speak, the higher you go or the longer you stay in IT, the less people are going to pay you to just do the coding, because the reality is that there is a cap of what people are willing to pay a individual software developer to write code, because the reality is it's sort of the difference between becoming a famous artist who gets paid, or well, I'm not saying that they get paid a lot, but that you create your own personal brand and you sell your art because you're famous, versus being someone who does like contract work for someone or so forth and so forth. There's like, you will not be able to, Picasso would never have made this sort of fame for himself if all he did was to work for other people and so forth. Like, his fame and like the values of his work, or whatever artist you think about, comes from the fact that they break out of like this like idea that they're just an artist, right? They become their own brand, right? And for software developers, it's the same thing. Like, it's the way it is for anybody. Like, the people who sell these self-help books, or like psychiatrists who become famous, etc., etc., because the average work of a psychiatrist or a software developer or an architect or whatever is capped in the eyes of like their industry. Usually at some level, you're not going to endlessly just see a return on investment. And so as a software developer, what you have to understand is that there is no scenario where you just get increasingly paid more and more for just doing the coding. Sooner or later, usually sooner, the only way you're going to be able to progress higher is if you in some way make the company more productive, or other people more productive, or you make more money for the company or something like that. And that usually manifests itself in only one of two ways. Either you lead people, you share your knowledge and your experience with people so that you get better results from a team, or like your influence, your impact, so to speak, grows to the point where more people see the value in having you around, and you become a go-to for a lot of things. And as I said, you can do that in one of two ways usually, or well, both is good, of course, as well. One is that you lead people, you take lesser experienced people and make them into high performance teams or something like that, or you simply know everything. You have the answer to all the questions for all the people who are planning out work, or they want to know how to do things, etc., etc. And that comes into the domain knowledge, which is one of the things I've mentioned to you guys before, where the first challenge of a software developer is to learn tools of the trade and learn how to just do programming. But that's just the first part. The other part now is that it's sort of like learning a craft, right? Or like a tool, a set of tools that, or being a carpenter or something like that. You learn the tools so that you can create things. But creating the things requires a different set of knowledge. Like you have to have creativity and so forth and so forth. But in software development, it's not just about that. It is about the existing system. You will need to be able to understand how the domain of your company works. Now, why this is so important is because if you don't have either one of these two, you are just a code monkey. And you will never, ever, 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 ever become valuable in the more valuable above the code that you can produce. Because even if you are the fastest typer, the fastest thinker, the best of there is, you cannot share that value. You are a linearly scalable person. And that is not valuable to the vast majority of people unless you are, as I said, like Picasso or Michelangelo or like whoever, like these gigantically like super geniuses of their craft, which you most likely are not, because there are people, guys, who invent like truly outstanding new solutions as like a solo genius, but they're so rare that you can't really bet on that. But if your desire is not to become more within software, and actually, because when you're getting older and so forth, I can basically guarantee you that there is only a matter of time before it starts to get a little bit odd that you haven't actually progressed your sphere of impact, or like the impact that you have on a company above that you sit and do the coding. And the pressure on you is fairly high to be one of these two characters. You don't have to be, but it is the norm. Now, the way that this plays into a team is, I hope that you can sort of understand, either you're leading the team, or you are the person who knows how most of the stuff works within the system that you are dealing with, so you have answers to all the questions. And that is something that is, doesn't matter if it's an agile team, it doesn't matter what team it is. Any organization needs this, because it's always made up of two types of people when it comes to people who have an impact above, just doing the grunt work. And that is either you know everything, or most of it, or you lead people or you manage. That is the natural progression of practically every software developer there is. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you want to be a great software developer, it's really up for interpretation what you want to define that as, because I mean, you can be a great software developer by being like the master of, I don't know, competitive programming or inventing some tool or so forth. The term great is so loose that it's hard for me to say this or that about it. What I can tell you is, for the average Joe software developer who's working in an IT company, yes, you will need to pick one of two paths. Either you become a leader of software developers, or you become a knower of technology and domains and systems and so forth and so forth. These are the two things usually that you have in front of you if you want to be truly outstanding in the industry. And I can't really tell you which one is better. I usually just say do both. Well, that's easy for me because both of these sorts of things sort of, I've never found it to be very difficult to master these areas. But if you do have a preference, these are usually the two choices that you have to pick from. You can absolutely just ignore it and sort of like just do the code monkey thing and so forth, and that might work out for you. But I will tell you that as you grow older, and especially if you want to reach higher salaries and higher levels of responsibility, or like higher levels within the organizations that you work with, it's very unlikely that you will get to that level by just doing coding and not taking responsibilities apart from, as I said, here is a task, do it. Here is a task, do it. That's not going to get you to the higher levels of IT usually. Have a great day.